I want to start out with a model that I think in many of the areas where I work, it's probably one of the most valuable tools that people get a hold of when they go through this. And a guy out of Utah designed it. That's where I first got involved with it 10 years ago or so. A guy named Hiram Smith, who was he was the CEO of Franklin Quest. They do the Franklin Day Planner, and he put this model together for business. And inadvertently, it got into one of the prisons in Oregon, and they started tying it together with a program I got called Breaking Barriers. And they started getting some letters from inmates, about the reality model. And I went and met with him, and I took him into a prison in Oregon, and we designed it for inmates. But I've used it in all the areas that I work because I think it's got tremendous value for people dealing with people. And the model is built on a needs wheel. And that, it's, you look at all the different psychological approaches to this, so don't get locked on all that. Just that we're driven by 5 basic human needs, all of us, The need to live, that's a basic human need. And, we all, over the period of our lives, each of you have designed a comfort zone that you need to create a certain amount of money every month to fill that need to live. And when changes occur, that starts getting threatened. So it causes a lot of challenges when that needs wheel starts getting threatened because people have worked like heck to develop a lifestyle that they got their boat and whatever it is, and now changes start occurring and some of that money starts disappearing and you start getting a little concerned. So another need is the need to love and be loved. That's a basic human need. And I'm not talking about the touchy-feely stuff, but years ago, before all this changes started taking place, people worked in companies and they really felt like the company cared for them. And that's not reality anymore. But that's a basic human need. And with children, that unconditional love, even though sometimes they're not very darn lovable, is critically important. And again, as a spouse myself, I have a wife. I don't let no day go by. Like this morning, it's 8 o'clock, and I'm 8 o'clock in Seattle. I call my wife and tell her how much I love her, because that's a basic human need, that people need that kind of feedback. We also have a basic human need for the need to feel important, that every individual in every organization should feel that what they do makes a difference. From the person doing the janitor work to the person running an organization, they should feel that what they do makes a difference. I've got a woman who's been with me 23 years, and she manages my life. And I don't let many days go by that I let her know how important that is to me. Because if I get on a plane, I don't even know where I'm going. So I look at the itinerary, and if she's got me going to Montana, I'm supposed to be in Indiana, then we're in trouble. So I depend on that, and who's going to pick me up and where I'm staying and all that kind of stuff. But she needs to get feedback that fills that need to feel important. Now there's another basic human need, and that's the need for variety. And you got to be careful where you get that one filled, or it'll have a little impact on some of the others. But the need for variety. And then in the core of that is the need for meaning. And a lot of the things you and I do, we do it because it brings meaning to our lives. I work with at-risk youth. I work in some of the inner cities because it brings meaning to my life. I go into prisons, and I feel that brings meaning to my life. I think I can make a contribution there. So those 5 basic human needs. And now the model, the second basic process of that model is you and I, over time, develop a window to the world of principles or beliefs that we feel will fill those basic human needs. Principles or beliefs. So the principle that you and I have developed over time that we look through the world through the world, fills those basic human needs, those principles. The next part of the model is when you face a situation, you go through an if-then decision-making process. If this is my principle, then this is how I should act. So you go through that if then. Then the fourth is behavior. Behavior. And the fifth is results. So now the only thing visible in that model, and it's when you work with this all the time, it's really important to kind of understand this. The only thing visible is behavior. That's the only thing visible in the model. But if you get really skilled at this, you can take the behavior and you absolutely can tell what principle is driving that behavior. What principle is driving that behavior. Now, in that model, there's two natural laws. The first one is results take time to measure. There isn't any easy, quick fix. Results take time to measure. The second natural law is if the results of your behavior do not meet your needs over time, you've got a faulty principle on your belief window. And you can work on behavior as much as you want, but if you don't change the principle, when push comes to a shove, you'll go back to the same old behavior. When I first started this journey 36 years ago, I recognized that I had a principle on my belief window that was inappropriate in reality to society. That dishonesty was optional. And I had to take that principle off my belief window and establish a new principle. So what would be an alternative principle to dishonesty? Anybody. Honesty, obviously. And so now how do you do that? You take that principle of honesty and you begin to sow those seeds. I am an honest human being and always follow through on my commitments. And when you do that, and you do it over and over and over and over and over, gradually and incrementally, it's just as difficult to be dishonest as it used to be honest. And the principle changes. See, most of us work on behavior, and we pay no attention to the principle that's driving it. And if you go back to that principle, sometimes you got to work on both at the same time. But the basic thing is to find the principle that's driving the behavior and then change the principle. And gradually the behavior changes. So that model is really interesting to look at, especially when you're dealing with people. Because you look at behavior, even when I'm doing a session, I can tell whether people are listening or whether they're trading time for money. CAT trains facilitators. I can come in at the end of that, I can tell which facilitators are going to go back and do something with the information, just by reading nonverbal communication. And you do it too, you do it automatically. You can tell whether people are listening to you or whether all they're doing is just preparing a rebuttal statement. So take a look at that model and see how it applies in the world that you work in and live in. The question is, to everybody, is what principle drives the behavior in the plant? You know, what principle drives the behavior between union and management? You know, and one of the things in my experiences over these years, working with union management, the underlying principle of the relationship is a faulty principle because it's based on a lack of trust. You know, in most cases, now you may have a different feeling today in Indianapolis. We're not in Indianapolis, where the hell are we at? Fort Wayne, Indiana. But we're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, you know, so your plant has developed a significant improvement in trust over the years, and you've got good leadership on both union and management, so the trust level is a whole bunch better than maybe it was 10 years ago. But out on the plant floor, you know what it looks like out there. And so, but the underlying principle, see, there is no healthy relationship that is a healthy relationship that doesn't have trust as a foundation. I don't care whether it's a partnership, whether it's a marriage, or whether it's a relationship in a plant. And there's no healthy relationship in terms of working relationship. Like if you and I don't trust each other, Ralph, there ain't no way in heck we're going to produce quality. Isn't that true? And so if you ask yourself the question, what principles maybe do we need to change in this plant to become more effective? Because if the principle remains the same, then you can try hard until the pressure's off, and then you go back to the same old behavior.